Hello boys and girls and welcome back to Mr. P's Isolation Station. Now today I wanted to share yet another exciting story with you all, and it's called Mrs Armitage on Wheels. Now this story is actually by a very famous illustrator called Quentin Blake. Now Quentin Blake has a very unique style of drawing, and I'm pretty sure you're probably familiar with his drawings from other books by famous authors such as Roald Dahl and David Walliams. So, are you sitting comfortably? Then let's begin. Mrs Armitage on Wheels by Quentin Blake. Mrs Armitage was out on her bicycle. Breakspear the dog ran alongside. A hedgehog walked across the road. Tring, tring, went Mrs Armitage on the bell. What this bike needs, said Mrs Armitage to herself, is a really loud horn. Mrs Armitage bought 3 horns. They were all very loud. Beep, beep, honk, honk, brah, brah, went Mrs Armitage on her horns. Then the chain came off. By the time Mrs Armitage had got it on again, her hands were all black with grease. What this bike needs, said Mrs Armitage to herself, is somewhere to wash your hands. So she got a bucket of water and a towel and a soap rack with a bar of soap, and she hung them all on the bike. And off she went with beautifully clean hands. What this bike needs, said Mrs Armitage to herself as she cycled along, if it's to be looked after properly, is a complete toolkit. So she got a toolbox with spanners and screwdrivers and hammers and cans of penetrating oil, and she fixed it on the back of the bicycle, and off she went. By now, Mrs Armitage was beginning to think about food. What this bike needs, said Mrs Armitage to herself, is somewhere to carry a light snack. So she got a tray of apples and bananas and cheese and tomato sandwiches, and a holder for a bottle of lemonade and a flask of cocoa, and a special basket for bones and dog biscuits for Breakspear. And she fixed them all to the bike, and off they went. But by now, poor Breakspear was feeling quite tired, running along beside the bicycle. You could tell because his tongue was hanging out, and he was panting. What this bike needs, said Mrs Armitage to herself, is something for a faithful dog to ride on. So she got some iron brackets, some nuts and bolts, and some cushions, and she made a seat for Breakspear on the back, and off they went. They had to stop beside the road for some sandwiches and dog biscuits when it began to rain. Good heavens, said Mrs Armitage. What this bike needs, Breakspear, is something to keep the rain off. So she got 2 umbrellas, 1 large and 1 small, and she fixed them onto the bicycle, and off they went, riding through the rain. Mrs Armitage began to feel rather downhearted. What this bike needs, said Mrs Armitage to herself, is a bit of cheerful music. So She got a transistor radio, cassette player, and a lot of cassettes of cheerful music, and a mouth organ so that she could join in. And she fixed them all to the bike, and off they went. Mrs Armitage was turning the pedals so fast and blowing the mouth organ so hard that soon she was nearly exhausted. "What this bike needs," said Mrs Armitage to herself, "is a bit of extra oomph." And so she got some wood and some ropes and some tarpaulin. She rigged up a mast and a sail and added a few yards of bunting and an anchor into the bargain. And off they went, with the wind behind them, faster and faster and faster, until... crash, crunch, clang, clatter, thud! "Oh, what this bike needs, Breakspear," said Mrs Armitage as she picked herself up from the wreckage, "is taking to the dump. And what I need is... Whoopee! But what these roller skates need, said Mrs Armitage to herself, what these roller skates need is... The end. Great story, wasn't it, boys and girls? Now, one of the reasons why I love this story so much is because Mrs Armitage finds some really exciting and interesting and actually quite funny ways of solving problems that she discovers along the way while riding her bike. So, with that in mind, I've got a very interesting task for you to try at home. What I would like you to do is have a go at designing and labelling your very own dream bike. Now, think of ways that maybe you could make it stronger or faster or maybe more beautiful. Now, one thing that I would like to add to a bike that I designed is a karaoke machine because I love singing. Have a think, boys and girls. The possibilities are endless. Use your imaginations and have fun with it. Time for me to go now, boys and girls, but I'll see you again next time. So until then, take care of yourselves and each other. Goodbye.